So, hi everyone, and welcome to week 15, also our final week of the Webflow workshop series. We've learned a lot during the series, and today we are going to be finalizing this um, Capstone project. So, I was rebuilding this website, Don Mosley, and last time we finished the homepage. So, today we're going to just be making the homepage responsive because if I preview on smaller screens, you can see it looks a bit weird. We haven't made it responsive yet. And then also adding in the animations. We'll see how much time we have left. If we have enough time, we can do, I think it was the awards page. No, I don't think the
I
awards
think
page.
those two are enough, really.
What?
The animations and responsiveness, because in responsiveness, I have a question. But
Okay.
let's see, maybe till the end, you might have, I might get answers or I'll ask again. Yeah.
Okay, let's do the responsiveness and the animations, and then we'll see how much time we have left. So let's preview our page right now. So we have all the sections added in, this section and this section. So how I normally do responsiveness is if I'm rebuilding from like for example, this case I'm rebuilding this page, I'll usually narrow down my screen to preview how this page looks on smaller screens and then try and copy those changes. But in this case, I'm just gonna do it on my own, like what I think is the best practice for tablet and mobile. So in Webflow, how you deal with responsiveness is there are two places. You can either change the screen size here, so desktop, tablet, mobile landscape, and mobile. You can also add larger breakpoints if you want to preview how it looks like on bigger screens. What to keep in mind is once you add this, you cannot get rid of it, like unless you undo, but you can't go back later and like there's no option to delete this screen size. So just bear that in mind if you are adding larger screen size. I find that you don't really need to because if you're going to preview down here, you can actually just manually write in like a larger screen size. So for example, like, I don't know, somebody has a huge screen, 3000 pixels. You can do that and then preview what your website will look like on there. So you don't really need to add an actual breakpoint, but you can if you want to. You can also change screen sizes down here. You can use the number keys. It gives you the numbers. So for example, number 2 is tablet. To go back to desktop, you can X this or just click number 1. So starting with tablet, you can see our navigation has changed from desktop to tablet. So the Webflow default navigation component. If you go into settings, it has these options here for when you want to start using the menu icon and to hide the actual menu. So in this case, it's set to tablet, which means from tablet mode, the menu icon will appear and our actual menu will be hidden within this menu icon. The idea is that, for example, if you had a lot of menu links and obviously on tablet, they'll look too squished together, you would just use an icon. In this case, we might actually still be able to use our navigation links on tablet. We'll just make them smaller. So I can use this to like change. So for example, now I don't want the menu button to appear on tablet. I want it to appear on mobile. So I just changed it from here to here. So now that I've done that, let me go in and just adjust this menu so we can see our links here are grouped together. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. We can go in here and we can adjust the grid. So right now the grid is set for each one of these columns is equal. But as you can see, our logo is like pretty small. It doesn't need to take up that much space. So we can actually go into a grid and instead of 1FR, we can just make it auto, which just tells Webflow that this should take the automatic width of the icon as opposed to making this column equal to these ones. So we did that, but we can still see that our links aren't in one line. They're still too big. So the second thing we can do is we can select our link and we can decrease it. We can decrease the size or we can decrease the padding. Let's start with decreasing the padding of these. And then let's see how if we increase this size. Okay, so we decrease the size and that helps in getting them all on one line, which is what we want. And then you also want to make sure because the size of this text and this text are equal. So if I'm going to decrease this text, then I should also decrease this text. to 0.875 gram. So now that's set up. And then that's it. That's all I've changed for the navigation. The next thing now is the hero section. So if we go back to desktop, and actually there are a couple ways you can do this. Normally for each section, I will actually change them all the way down to mobile and then go to the next section. You can also like do the whole page and then go to the mobile view. Really, there's no clear way to do it. It's just kind of what works for you. For now, I'll do each one of these sections and then go to mobile. So for our hero section, you can see here the main difference that our images are smaller because our images resize according to our screen. Um, so really the only change I think I want to make here is just making the images a bit bigger, but the text is fine, so we'll leave it as is. So I'm gonna go in our layer panel and select these individual images, and then I'm just gonna increase them. I'll increase them by 10. Oops, actually, yeah, I'll increase them by like 10 and see how that looks. And because each one of these images is like has its own unique class name, that's why you have to manually go in and update all of them. And then I'll just move this around a bit more um, accordingly. So we'll move that there. Maybe we want to move this one a bit higher, like here. Okay, you can also drag if you kind of hover, you'll see that there's this I don't know what you'd call this, but this thing here, but allows you to like drag and resize your screen. It even tells you on the bottom left, like, okay, this is the screen size for iPad Pro. This is for, I don't know, Surface Pro. So you can also, because one thing with Webflow is that when you go to different screen sizes, like, okay, to tablet, it goes to a specific size, which in this case is 768. But not all tablets are this size. Some tablets are bigger, some are smaller. So using this, you can then manually like see, okay, these are all basically this is the maximum you can resize it for tablet. So these are generally all the possible tablet screen sizes you could be working with. So it allows you to just make sure that you're not just designing for like the smallest size, but like even the bigger sizes, it looks fine. Most of the time, you don't really need to focus on that because it should look fine. But there are, depending on the design, it is good to just make sure that across all your screen sizes, the design looks good when you are making it responsive. If I go to mobile really quickly, same thing. I can scale it up until, so for mobile view, the like largest mobile landscape, the largest is like iPad, etc. And then the smallest is, Kindle. And then obviously if you go to mobile portrait, there's even smaller screen sizes. Obviously certain screen sizes are super rare. Like this is not a screen size you should even consider because it's way too thin. Most phones, like 99% of phones, are not this size, but you can also increase it to see like larger screen sizes. So that's just another thing you can keep in mind. In this case, I think this is mainly done. Maybe I want to like move this here and move it a bit more here, but otherwise, I think this hero section is done. Next thing I want to look into is this bio section. So we have this bio and I think just this arrow, so that's it. We could decrease the size of this. I mean, it's probably still fine for tablet, but the idea also with text is that you're supposed to scale them down as you go to lower screen sizes. So in the case of our heading, since we're using VW, we've covered this before, it'll decrease and increase in size according to the width of your screen. So that's why if I make this larger, it increases. I make it smaller, it decreases. So even going down to mobile, it'll keep decreasing. So we actually don't really need to do anything for the heading. I think it's fine as it is. In this case, we've used a fixed size, 5 rem. So even on smaller viewports, oh, actually it does. But I think that's because in our style guide, they have set it so that the headings and even I think the paragraph text decreases in size. So one thing you could actually do, I find this is easier for headings specifically, is going back to your style guide and going to our headings, right? We'll leave H1. Actually, maybe do H1. You can adjust the size of the heading for all your viewports in your style guide. I think it's easier that way. You can then preview how the different sizes look, and then you don't have to think about it later. So we'll go ahead and do that. So starting with H1, on desktop, it's 15 rem. So let's say on tablet, we probably want to decrease it by a lot because It's quite huge. And then on mobile landscape, we'll decrease it again. We'll make it 6. Actually, 6 is probably, whoops, 6 is probably still quite big. We'll make it 5. And then on, oh, we'll make it like 5.5. And then on mobile portrait, we'll make it like 4.5. Same thing with our tags. So remember, this is our HTML tag and this is our actual class. We want them to be the same, so we're going to apply the same styling. So from 15 rem to, I think it was, what was it? To 8 to 5.5 to 4.5. Okay. So 15 rem to 8 to 5.5. Right. So you'll see here there was already an update made, and that's just because it comes with the style guide, but you can still go in and adjust that. So that's H1 done. Let's go to H2. We select all H2 headings. So H2 is 13 rem. So we can go 13 rem to 6 rem, which is here. And then from 6 rem, we can go to 4.5 rem, and then let's say 3.5 rem. Okay. So same thing with our heading H2 class. We'll go 6 rem, 4.5, 3.5. We're gonna do the same thing for, well, this H2 is already done. This H2 is already done. We're gonna do the same thing for H3. So H3 in desktop is 8 rem. So it can go down to 5 rem, to 4 rem, to 3 rem. Be simple. And then we'll do the same thing. And it's actually confusing. I'm doing this just because I'm used to it, but you'll see, like, even as you're resizing, it's like, because I don't know why they use such a huge sample text for the heading, but obviously because our headings are huge, it like covers a lot of space. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter as long as you are making sure to select the right thing. So in this case, I have my H3, which I think I said goes to 5 rem, to 4 rem, to 3 rem. And then I have my H4, which starts off at 4 rem. So we'll have it go to 5 rem, sorry, to 4 rem, and then to 3, and then to, we can say 2.5. We do the same thing for the tag. It goes to 4, to 3, to 2.5. And then our H5 is next, which originally is 2.8. So we can make it 2.5, and then 2, and then 1.5. We can say 1.75. And then for our tag, same thing. Yeah, there we go. Our tag, same thing. We'll go to 2.5. We'll go to 2, and we'll go to 1.75. I believe that's how I did it. I almost 1.75 to 2 to 2.5. And let me just make sure that matches my 2. Okay. And then last, we have our H6, which starts off at 2. So we can have that go to 1.75 and then to 1.5. And I think I'm not going to give it another mobile. This will be the smallest size I do. So I'll just leave that as is. And then I just do the same thing here, 1.75, 1.5, and leave that as is. So now that's done. If I scroll down, I can also update these other texts if I really want. They do come adjusted already, so I think how they've updated the paragraph sizes is probably fine for what we're working with. So now that that's adjusted, we can go back here. So if we go back to tablet mode, you'll see it's already been adjusted according to those changes I made in the style guide. So I don't really need to do anything here. I would only need to make changes here if I felt like there needs to be some slight tweaking. Then it's easier to do it on the actual page instead of the style guide because you can see how it looks like in the actual design. So this section is fine. I'm okay with it. So we'll go down to this section, which also I feel like looks pretty good. The only thing is maybe I want to decrease the size of this from 4 rem to 2 rem. But otherwise, I feel like this is also essentially okay. With designs like this, you also try and like not make it too, at the end of the day, it's like an unconventional design. So there is no clear guideline of how it should look or appear. But I feel like this is probably okay. And the good thing is that we also use percentages for these images, which means that they do scale down as you go down. If you use fixed values, then you every for every single screen size, you then have to update it, and it becomes a lot of work. Using percentages or VW, VH makes it more responsive. So going down, this is our next section, services. Um, we can see here our H3. So let's open this and just make sure that this is fine as well. Text size medium. Okay, so for text size medium on mobile, it doesn't go down. So I'm gonna update that manually. I'll make it 1.125. This goes down because we already updated it, so that's fine. So this section is fine too. Going down to this section now. Okay, yeah. So you'll notice I was like, what is this weird image effect here? And that's because we applied our background as a section background, so it's not like its own image element. So if I go into my section here, you'll see there's an option for tile. By default, all images are tiled. So in this case, it's you can't see that because the image takes the full width of the container. But I'm gonna X that to make sure that it doesn't look tiled on mobile. Now, the only difference is that the image doesn't cover the container, but we can easily change that by just setting it from custom to cover. So now it does cover the container. The reason we used custom on desktop is because we wanted to zoom in on the image more, right? But we can just update that on tablet. Otherwise, everything else here looks okay to me. Going back to this section, on desktop, it's a grid. Here, I mean, this could still work, but I feel like the grid is a bit, especially for the form, it looks like it's constrained. So maybe we want to go from grid to just having them be vertical. So in that case, you can delete one column, you can go to flex, really same thing. So for example, if I just go to flex, so in this case, I want this section to be here. And then for my image, I had a negative margin on desktop in order to get it to move lower, so take up more space. But on tablet, I don't want that anymore because we're not using that effect. So I'm just going to set that to 0. So now that increases that gap here. And then I can also just decrease this gap to 4 rem. And then everything else with my form now is okay. You might even say to hide this image on mobile. Because I think on desktop it makes sense, but on tablet I'm like, does it really make sense? I could try also putting it above the text. Maybe that's better. So how I did that is by just selecting the image, and because I used Flex for this container for the text and the image, you can select any of the elements and you can give them an order. So it should come in first, it should come in last. You can get more specific. So you can do that and you can update that according to whatever screen size you're on. So I think this looks better, so we'll leave it as that. And then this is our footer. If we go to our desktop, this is how our footer was. I think on mobile, our footer is still okay. The only thing I might want to do is update the image. So just decreasing the size, maybe moving it a bit more there. So it's supposed to be a bit closer to our, so we can do that. Okay, so that is it for, and then for our links, I think I also want to increase the size a bit because they look like it was too small there. So that's it for tablet. So tablet view is done. So now we will go all the way back up and do the next view, which is mobile. So now mobile, as you remember, we have our menu icon now. So first I'm going to change this from flex to grid so that my menu icon can be there. For this nav logo, I wonder if I can make it auto. Yeah, I'll make the nav logo auto. And then book now isn't in the menu because if you look in your layers manual, the menu is what gets hidden once your icon appears. So anything outside of that will still show up. So for example, this button here is outside that menu, so it's gonna appear here. I think the button, I can make it first. So remember now what we did with flex items, flex child items. You can change the order on smaller screen sizes because I still want my logo to be in the middle. So instead I can make this book now link first. And then to edit your navigation menu, just select the icon. You can see here, this is nav menu button. I can give it a class as well. And then within this menu button, you can change this. You don't have to use this icon. You can add in your own icon. Um, just use the default. But to actually view what your menu looks like in settings, there's a option for show. So when you click show, it'll show you how your menu looks, similar to how a drop down works. And then now you can edit it. So for example, if I wanted, there is an option here to set the menu to fill the height. I do wonder, actually, I found that that never works for me for whatever reason. So anyway, because actually, I think I would want my menu to fill the height of my screen, but we'll just leave it like this for now. So nav menu, by default, it just updates to gray, but you can change this. I can just make this green. Same with your menu icon, the open state makes it gray, but you can change that. You can make it white, just so it looks a bit different, and then you can make this so the icon changes according to the color of the text. So you can make that icon text green. So because our menu is very simple, we can probably just leave it like this. And then if I go to mobile, so when I'm doing mobile landscape, I usually do mobile portrait at the same time because they're not too different. Like I don't have many style changes. So you can see both in mobile landscape and portrait, it looks fine. So now I can go in and I can just hide my menu. The other thing, you can also change the animation type. So is it a drop down? Does it come over the right? Does it come over the left? You can change the easing, how long the animation text takes. So if I preview, for example, here, because we selected drop down, this is how the menu drops down. Okay, which is fine for what we need it for. So that's our navigation done. Very straightforward. Next, we have our hero section, which once again has all these images. I am curious actually on, okay, so on mobile, they still are using these images. So we'll keep that same effect on mobile. Once again, we do have to go in and size up our images if we can find them. Okay, here section gallery, because they're a bit small. So we'll go in and size this up by 10% again. Um, we can move it around. The other thing I also might want to do is currently our hero section is 100 VH. I think I'll probably leave it as 100 VH actually. So we can just play around. There's no fixed way we want to do this, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. So I'll just play around with this, increase the size of this, move it there, move it off there, and then this is good enough. Now you'll see because my image has gone off screen, when I scroll to the right, it appears, and we don't want this effect. So the simplest way to solve that is to just select our hero section and then click overflow hidden. So now any content that is outside my container is hidden by default. Okay, next thing I want to do is this section here, I think is pretty much okay. Maybe I just want to decrease the padding between these elements because they're a bit large. I am thinking if I want to decrease, I'll probably decrease the size of this as well because it's a bit too big. And then that's fine. This section, once again, we have our grid. I think I might decrease. So I'll make this 2 and 2, and I'll make this 5. And I'll make this, let's say like 10, right? And then this image in particular, I can decrease it by like 8. So we're just trying to cut down like the space that's used here. But otherwise, we'll just leave it as it is. These text blocks can also stay as they are. I think this section is probably okay. Oh, and I forgot to actually, I'm supposed to be previewing these on mobile landscape and portrait. So for our hero section, let's check out portrait mode. Um, only thing I want to do is, once again, I'm thinking, should I increase the size? I don't think I want to increase the size of the images. I think I want to actually decrease the height so that they're closer together. Like maybe I want to make it 70 VH. Yeah, that's fine. And then for this section, it's fine. This section, we probably want to decrease the image width because now they're looking pretty small on mobile. On landscape, mobile landscape, they're okay. But on mobile portrait, they probably look a bit small. So you can just go in and select the image and increase it. So let's say this, I'll increase it by 20% for all of them. So this is 20, this is fine. This is also fine. This is by default already. Okay, I'm going to go in and select this image and just make sure to decrease the margin because I want to make sure it's not taking up too much space. So same with this column, you can decrease that and make it 6 rem. But otherwise, I think this looks fine. So going back to mobile landscape, if I open up this menu, I think it still looks okay. And then on mobile portrait, that looks fine still. So we'll leave that as it is. For this section, let's see how it looks like on, well, actually, even on mobile landscape, we can see that our text is now starting to get a bit too close to the edge. So we're actually using VW. We gave it a combo class because we wanted to use VW. So we can actually change that now instead of VW to like give it an actual size so that it doesn't reach the border. So I think this is pretty good. Um, and then in the case of this, I think I don't want to do the grid anymore. I'm wondering if I can just do flex vertical and have them centered like that instead. I think that's probably a better look on mobile. Let's preview on mobile portrait. So actually, now that I've done this, I also want to make sure to align the text. So it's centered positionally, but you also want to make sure to give it alignment in the center. If I scroll down, I think this looks good. The only thing is this, I mean, you could shrink the text size again, but it'll probably need to be too small because the button is already big. So actually what I'll do is I'll just change this from flex horizontal to flex vertical and keep it that way. Next up, we have this section, which I think looks fine on mobile as well. So I'll leave that. And then if I go to mobile portrait, um, the only thing I want to do is maybe increase the size of this image on mobile portrait. And then for our form, in some cases we've used grid. Well, I think just in this. So maybe on mobile, you want to just change that to one column so that people have enough space to kind of put in their full name. And then for the spacing, just want to make sure that I'm using for my grid the same spacing as the rest of the form. For these checkboxes, we can leave it as, I mean, you can make it a grid. Actually, we'll probably do that. A grid looks good, and then everything else looks fine in this case. If I go back to mobile landscape, our footer is now the last thing that we are playing around with. So I might actually, I'm thinking of just removing this image on the footer because I feel like certain things just don't really need to be there on certain viewports. So I'm like, I don't think we need this image on mobile anymore. I think it served its purpose. So on mobile, I'm actually gonna set this to none and hide the image. I'm going to give these 100%. And I'm also going to increase the size of the footer. It doesn't need to be quite this big anymore. So we'll do that. Just set it to 60 VH. And then for our columns, we'll also reduce the size there. And then if we search on mobile landscape, we can see it still looks good on mobile landscape. So we'll leave it as it is. So that's pretty much it for making this page responsive. We've done a couple of different things, updated the text sizes, updated some of the layouts from grid to flex, etc. And all of it is kind of just based on what you think looks good. If you have a reference, you can use the reference. Otherwise, for my case, I was just manually adjusting this according to what I think works best. The great thing about using a style guide as well is you notice I didn't have to update any padding or margin. Like for example, padding global, padding vertical, because all of that is already updated via the style guide. Once you use the style guide, it comes with those elements resized on smaller screen sizes. So for example, padding global on desktop is 2%. But if I go down to mobile, it changes to this so that there's less space. And it's already done that via the style guide. So it makes your life easier. You don't have to update each and every single thing, but certain things can be manual update. And you can still go in and make changes on your own if you want to later on. So up until this point, any questions so far?
Yeah, I think it's just like clarification. I noticed like you in the beginning you used the style guide in creating the website. Then when you are trying to make the website responsive. Like the more you go down, like
Mm-hmm.
you started to adjust the the style guide again. Yeah, I
Yes.
think that is what I went wrong
Mm,
because like mine, uh, while I tried to do like the responsiveness, then I ended up with I mean the fonts were affected. Like the
mm,
wider one which I used for the website, the H1,
mm,
I took it in the mobile version, but when I went, I launched like I previewed the whole site. I
mm-hmm.
found that the the font has been affected. So that's why I was wondering what was
Mm.
I doing wrong? But yeah, I think you've clarified that part. So let
Okay.
me go and adjust that. Then if I get any challenge, I think I'll reach out to you. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. If you have any more problems, just let me know. Um, but otherwise, you're good on that. We can move on to the animation.
Yeah, and I hear like the time is almost over, and you say like I think the last session you're also going to talk about
Mm-hmm.
how to publish.
Yep. Okay. So that's also important. Thank you for reminding me.
Okay.
Um, let me do the publishing first then because that's pretty simple. And then we can see how much time we have left over if we still need to animate. At the end of the day, we did have animation weeks. So if you guys still want clarification on animation, you can review those. But publishing. So let's imagine this is my site. I'm done. It's one page. I'm ready to launch. Um, First thing is normally there's a checklist that you should use for any website. I can also share a link to a checklist that you guys can use and you can adapt it for your projects. But it helps you remember every single thing you have to do when you are launching a website. It actually from the beginning, when you're creating the website up until you are ready to launch. So actually, I always pull this up when I'm working on a project because it is impossible to remember all these details on your own. So on my checklist, which you can't see, but that's fine. I'll share a link to a checklist you can use. But there are different sections like, okay, there's build, there's populate, which is usually updating CMS, etc. And then the two last categories are testing and QA and launch and client handoff. So in this case, let's start from testing and QA. So first thing is testing forms. So for example, if I have a form on my page, which I do in this case, I would want to test it to make sure it works. So I would publish this site on staging, I would test the form, confirm it works, and then I can check that off. Other things that you would want to do is make sure your links are working. So we have, for example, this link in the navigation. We have these links here to other pages. We have this home link. So you want to make sure every single link on your page is working. So once that's confirmed, you check it off on your checklist. The other thing that we want to do is we want to just organize all our assets, if that makes sense. First thing is the classes. So if you're going to your style selectors, you can see there's this broom icon here. If you click it, it'll prompt you to delete all unused classes. So as you're making your page or your website, you'll find that you have a lot of different classes you're using. You might use one, you might stop using it. So as one final thing to do, before launch and also continuously as you keep on working on the website is to just go in and make sure to clear all your classes so that you're not just adding hundreds and hundreds of unused classes on your website. So I'll just click that and I click delete and now all those are gone. If I click the broom again, you can see it has no unused styles. Thing you can do, same thing, you can clear any unused interactions. In this case, we don't have any. We're using like every interaction. I mean, I don't actually know if we have interaction added, but any interaction we could have added is being used, so there's nothing to clean. But it would be the same concept. You could go in and clear any unused interaction. Okay. The next thing that you also want to organize and clear off any unused assets is your images. So under assets, you can click this icon to expand all your different assets. And a cool thing you can do is you can select all. So you can select all these assets and you can actually delete them. When you click delete, it'll tell you that it's not going to permanently delete these images if they're being used on your website. So any image that you are actually using on your website will not be deleted, but it'll delete the ones you're not using. So it's a way to easily clear unused assets. And then when you refresh, so you publish your site and you refresh the page, the used images will come back. So let's test that. We'll delete everything. You can see here it's deleted. Well, once again, we'll publish our site and then we'll refresh this page. Now we can go back to our assets panel and then you can see that all these images are back. So in this case, we haven't actually used any image that basically every image that is here is ones we've used on the website. If it were the case of a bigger website and we had like a bunch of images that we had maybe used to test something but weren't using anymore, they would be deleted. But in this case, because it's just this one page, you can see it's exactly the same images. So great. Next thing with images, while you're still on that point, is to compress them. So Webflow has a tool to automatically compress images. If I click this, and I click select and I select all my images, and there's this compress icon here. I think we probably covered this already. You can click that and compress your images. So I normally do WebP, and it'll only compress the ones that it can compress. So any JPEG or PNG images, anything else like SVG, it won't compress, but you don't have to manually select them. You can select all and Webflow will know which ones to compress, and it'll give you a small update when it's done. Similarly, we covered this as well, but you can do the same thing with CMS. We don't have any CMS collection, so it doesn't matter for us, but you can click these settings icon and compress all your assets. Another thing that you want to do prior to launch is also check for your Webflow audit, which we also covered. Make sure that your website is accessible. Remember, there is also that longer, actually, I don't think I have shared, there is a longer accessibility checklist you can use for your projects, which I can also share in the email I'll send out, that goes into more detail how to make your website more accessible. But the Webflow audit covers the basics, so you can use that. So in this case, since we have a lot of images, there are a lot of images that need alternative text. So I would need to go in and write descriptions for all these images. We've covered how to do that before, so you can go ahead and do that. And then also in this case, we have a section where we're using duplicate IDs. This is probably in our form. If I click this arrow, it'll take me exactly to where that's happening. So our form fields by default, actually not by default. I think I just forgot to, yes, I forgot to update the field names. I think when we were covering forms, that's something I covered. So this is name, this is last name, email, project description. You would update all this here and then it would update the ID. In this case, I didn't do that. That's why it's flagging it. But this is something that you also need to do prior to launch. Make sure to go through your audit for all your pages and clear all these errors. There are other smaller things that you can do. Um, like I said, I'll share the full checklist. We don't need to go into detail for each and every single one. But in this case, for example, I don't have a custom domain on my site. So I can just publish it to staging. So let me go ahead and do that. Let me republish it. And then I can see how my site looks live. And if we imagine that this is the live site, this is what it would look like, which, is what we want. Now, the other thing that I didn't do yet is, I hope you can see this on my screen, is I can click this to check my SEO. So I believe we have covered this in an earlier session, but I haven't had it in any SEO information to this site. So I have this plugin called, I forgot the name. I think it's called Detailed SEO. So you can go on any page and preview the SEO for that page. So in this case, there's a title, but there's no description. Um, there's no canonical tag. There's like nothing. There's no image or anything like that. There's like no SEO information because we didn't add it. So that's also one of the things in the checklist where it's like you make sure you add in that meta title and meta description for your image. So I can say this is done mostly. add a description. I can make this the same. Webflow added this new before. I think actually in the last time we covered this, you had to actually add in the URL fields. Now Webflow has updated this where you can actually select an image to use instead. So that's a neat little, so it'll, hmm, I am curious. I actually have not used this feature before. This is extremely recent. So it's asking me to type in a name. I wonder if it wants me to type in the name of the file. So let me try that really quickly. So if I go to select image SQSP, okay, interesting. I wonder if I have to type the full name of the image. That's interesting. Well, I don't know how exactly how that works, but you can also add it by URL and use the same process I shared before. So you can do it that way, and then you can save and update those SEO settings. The only other thing related to publishing, and I'm just going through this checklist to make sure that I haven't missed anything. The only other final thing that I would mention, I don't think we can go into it in too much detail because I don't have a custom domain for this site. But if you were adding in a custom domain, so go to publishing. So you can see here, in order to add a domain, we have to add a plan, which I don't want to add to this site. But I think I also covered it in an earlier week that adding a custom domain is pretty straightforward. Once you have a site plan, it'll prompt you to add your domain. You just log into your domain provider and it adds in all those details for you automatically. It's very easy now compared to how it was before. But I feel like these are the key things to cover in regards to getting to the publishing point for your website. Have your checklist, review your checklist, preview your site on different browsers, Chrome, Safari. Your site might look okay on Chrome, but it might look weird on Safari. So it's good to preview on both. Preview it on your phone, look at it on different devices, Mac versus Windows. These are all things where it might look slightly different on one or the other. So you want to make sure that it still looks okay, regardless of what browser somebody is using or whatever device that they're using. And that's pretty much it. Any questions? If there are no questions, then we can finish up here because we only have like 5 minutes left. So it's hard to do much in 5 minutes. But this is the end of our Webflow workshop series. We have covered a lot, fun like the foundational stuff, advanced stuff, everything in between. Hopefully it has been helpful. But the key thing when it comes to learning Webflow is just keep practicing, keep building, keep, challenging yourself in building more complicated pages. The more you do it, the better you get. If you don't practice, it's very hard to, advance yourself and upgrade your skills. Even though this is the end of the Webflow workshop series, you can still reach out for help and support with Webflow. In Floxy's, we are hosting a Webflow. It's more of a roundtable for design and Webflow, but if you have a Webflow question, you can also come and ask it every 2 weeks and gather. So you can participate in that if you need help or advice or support in Webflow. You can obviously reach out to me at any point on WhatsApp or by email if you have specific questions. And yeah, there's support in the Floxy's community. So you don't have to feel like now you're on your own. But hopefully this workshop kind of gives you a lot of skills that you can now continue to upgrade and develop and improve as you keep on building in Webflow. But I'll end this session here for today. And thank you everyone for watching these videos and good luck on your Webflow journey.